All right, everybody, welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akeley. I own the ABV Network, and virtual bourbon events are the latest thing that we're doing. We own a lot of different media type of things, podcast and live events. And, we have an email newsletter and all kinds of different cool things that we do, but I think this might be the coolest thing that we're doing. We've got the team from Deerhammer Distilling Company here out of Buena Vista, Colorado. I got to say that right. I always want to say Buena Vista, but it's Buena Vista, right? So joining me is Lenny, Eckstein, and Nick Blake. Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing great, Steve. Good to be here.
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really excited about this. This concept of a virtual barrel pick, it really hits the mark now because this is, we've already talked, this is the first barrel pick for a couple folks on today's call. So it's a pretty cool thing because you actually get the real experience of that. Of course, we're in a time now where we can't go out and do barrel picks, even for those of us that are normally used to doing them. So this is a great alternative to that just from the comfort of our own homes. And you guys have set up a really cool program here. But before we get to any of that, Lenny, I think it's a good idea to tell us a little bit about your company. How do you get started and all that type of thing for those on the call here today that don't necessarily know your personal story?
Yeah, sure thing, Steve. Well, my wife, Amy, and I, we started Deerhammer 10 years ago. And the whole intention was to really do our own thing within the realm of craft distilling, bring our own philosophies to how we should make spirits and what we want them to taste like, and just experiment in this whole realm that where so many things taste amazing, but they taste pretty similar. So be it American single malt, which we're most known for, or doing a 4-grain bourbon that's kind of a different grain profile, or smoke corn whiskey. We're always experimenting and trying to bring really cool things there. And along with my right hand, Nick Blake, who's sitting to my right on this, and I'll let Nick talk a bit about what he's brought to Deerhammer. I think we're doing some really cool stuff. We're really proud of our efforts. So with that.
Yeah, I've been with Deerhammer for a few years. I kind of came in Colorado on the beer scene, the craft beer scene. I worked for a brewery out here for a while, and kind of always saw Deerhammer grow. I was in here BB when they started, and I was always just really impressed with what Lenny and Amy were doing, and jumped on the first chance to join the team. And Lenny and I have spent a lot of time together making whiskey, and my favorite stuff is every time I mess something up, Lenny always had a one-up story on how he messed something up a little bit more. But the Black House is awesome, and working with these guys is great. I've been really impressed with Deerhammer of how we're just trying to build something that's super different and super delicious and kind of what we want to drink. Bring the mountains out to everyone else, and get you a glass of whiskey that is going to really surprise you with like how different, refreshing, and how good it really is. So that's kind of our goal here: get you something new, refreshing, and just as good as all those classics. So.
Absolutely. And you guys do a lot of different styles of whiskey, and we're going to get a nice overview of that with today's event. We've got 8 barrels that we're going to be choosing from, and you've got a lot of different, flavor profiles, different types of whiskey in that, and these are all going to be in the mix. We're going to take this, we're going to narrow the 8 down to, we'll narrow it down to 6, and then we'll narrow it down to 3, and everybody on today's call will get to pick one of the 3 barrels. So you get to decide which is your favorite out of that. That's kind of the concept, right, Lenny?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And you, it should be noted too, for those that don't know this, you are a regular on one of our shows, the Bourbon Daily.
Yeah, it's good fun. I love hanging out, talking whiskey and talking bourbon. And I really enjoy it. So just as well with this.
Yeah. You kind of fit in right away. One of those deals where we knew you were a great fit the first time we had you on, and you just keep coming back. So, and you never say no. Well, every time I ask you, you're like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it.
I get to hang out in my rack house, drink whiskey, and talk to other folks who are enjoying bourbon. Can't say.
Yeah. And plus you never know what McNew's going to do, right?
This is true.
It's a nice little bonus. So we're going to start this thing out. We've got 8 barrels. Everybody, hopefully you have your sheets, because we're going to be referring to these barrels by number throughout the course of the event. So hopefully I sent that to everybody today. Hopefully you've got it. If not, we'll have to kind of give you a reminder from time to time. But Lenny, if you don't mind, maybe you and Nick could run through each of the 8 barrels, and that's going to be the starting point, literally kind of talking about that. We can ask any questions about these, so kind of we'll go through one by one, and then the group, again, very informal tonight. Feel free after each one to ask any questions that you have about it, because you're going to be making a decision based on these explanations. We're going to eliminate 2 before we really even get started here. Okay?
Yeah. Let's definitely keep this active and worth noting, as you guys might be aware, we'll eliminate this down in the first round, but from there, Nick and I will pull samples, and maybe some new stuff will jump out to us. Maybe you guys might have some questions that we can address. But let's just get into it. I'll go. Why don't we alternate? I'll start with barrel number 1, as we're going to refer to it, and if you want to take 2, but
Yeah.
starting with barrel number 1. I think it's worth saying that every single one of these 8 barrels is all, these are all our favorite barrels. There's not a single stinker in here. A few of these, starting with barrel number 1, is a candidate for a single barrel that any liquor store would be able to buy. So the type of whiskey in that, it's an American single malt, 100% malt barley. The grain bill on this one, it's comprised of about 80% pale 2-row base malt, and the remainder is just about an even split of specialty malts. So Crystal 45, Crystal 120, chocolate malt, all grains that if you were to look at it in the sense of sort of like a beer, because that's, like with all whiskey and even with bourbon, you're really brewing a beer to start. This one kind of has like a stout type of quality to it, and some of those flavors carry through. This one was initially filled on January 1st, 2018. Most of our inventory is, we always say minimum 2 years. Some of the stuff will creep up a little higher. Barrel profile on this one. It came from Independent Stave. It's a 53-gallon heavy toast number 2 char. The reason why I picked this one, because it's all American single malt. We have a fair amount of consistency, but every once in a while, something really demonstrates just extreme quality. And there's a really, really nice, I like to go with singular or 2 food words. This one had a big maple note to it that it's not overpowering by any means, but it's got a really nice sweet quality. Possibly maybe it was a little under attenuated, so there's some residual notes of what you might pick up in sweetness, but I love this barrel. It's definitely one of my go-tos that I drink from with a straw fairly often.
Okay.
So there's barrel 1.
A quick question. I know that one of the things too, I don't know that we mentioned this up front. You're going to be doing the proofs when you thief the samples. So when you go in there, you're pulling the samples. You're also going to let them know you've got the fill proof on there, but they're going to talk what the proof is sitting here today.
Yeah, that's a great point, and Nick could speak to this as well. But we're a very, very different climate than a lot of other whiskey making regions. Obviously, we're way different than Scotland, but even Kentucky, where the majority of stuff comes out of Bardstown or Louisville, we're at least we're at 8,000 feet. So I don't know what elevation Louisville is, maybe 400 feet, something like that.
Maybe, yeah.
It's super dry here. The humidity is insanely low. It's always low. So we actually gain percentage alcohol. We lose water throughout the duration. We also have an insane amount of angel share. Within, we had a rum barrel that was just up there.
Past tense.
Yeah, past tense. I went to drink some out of there, and nothing came out. And I shined a flashlight, and realized it was either 4 or 5 years old, empty. Angel shared away, completely gone.
Wow.
So that's the thing up here. So yeah, that was a long way of saying we're going to check the proof again. Haven't checked it lately. We'll pull a sample of whichever you guys think, and we'll just see where the proof is going from when it got filled.
I'd like to introduce my co-host for this event, the person who started the whole virtual bourbon concept, and that's Christy Atkinson. Christy, do you have any questions about barrel number 1?
Not so far. It sounds really good. I like this maple note.
Yeah, stout quality. Sounds interesting. Anybody else have any questions before we move on? Again, are we making a decision? Susie, go ahead.
I haven't had a whole lot of just straight barley whiskeys. How would you just put that up next to like a wheated bourbon or something? What are the different characteristics besides, like, I understand the maple part, but like what else do you get?
Well, that's a great question. I'll let Nick speak to that. But one thing I do want to address that's kind of interesting about that question is you are as well going to have an option to check out a wheated bourbon that we make. So do you want to take that one?
So our single malt, like being based on malted barley, and before I even worked for Deerhammer, the Deerhammer single malt always reminded me of like my favorite parts of Scotch and my favorite parts of bourbon. And with that being 100% malted barley, the 4 flavor profiles that I kind of bounce around that I'm always thinking of is like, it has like a real nice kind of bready toast quality. Because it's a stout style, a lot of our barrels or a lot of our whiskeys will have like a coffee and chocolate, kind of like that roasty or darker flavor. And then it's also like, it also has a spice quality that's not present in bourbon. Like where bourbon has that sweet quality, single malt kind of tends more to the spice side. And so like with this barrel number 2, this is like the perfect combination of that like bready kind of like bakery kind of aroma and flavor with that nice spice quality. And then like, instead of the bourbon corn sweetness, you have a little bit more of that kind of like, it's like I talk like it's a bready sweetness. It's like sweetbreads, like a raisin bread. And like this one, cinnamon raisin kind of bagels. It's like when you walk into like a bakery and you're like, oh, you smell that sweet and that cinnamon. That's like,
You're
that's
talking
that
about
nose.
barrel number 2?
Yeah, this is barrel number 2 here. And so it's that same single malt, whereas like barrel number 1 kind of tends more of that kind of like mapley kind of sweet chocolate and coffee. Barrel number 2 is more of that like spice and bready notes, just like walking into a bakery. Like our distillery often smells like almost like a bakery when you walk in when we're doing our single malt. And these 2 barrels, they were made in like the same season. You know, we will buy a silo at a time, and so these barrels are only about a month apart. And so that'll also kind of change. You know, like in January it's like super cold, and so our barrels kind of have a little bit different temperature swings in February. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the proof changed with those 2 and kind of how they compare as well. So.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I had just a question in regards to the first 4 barrels in general. I'm still trying to find a good gateway Scotch for me to get my hands around the peatiness, and I haven't found it. Will you find any peatiness in these 4, or do you compare any tasting notes to the Scotch world with these?
Right. That's a really good question. You will find no peatiness in any of these. They don't utilize any smoked grains, but a portion of the grains are dark roasted barley, which imparts, think just dark roast coffee, dark chocolate, like some of those notes that hint towards like, I mean, the nicer end of those acrid qualities. So they all will have that. None of these would be a stand-in for anything out of Isla. That's that strong peaty note. But I guess I'll just kind of move down. Like Nick kind of touched on barrel number 2, which very similar to barrel 1, but strong cinnamon raisin notes. I'm going to jump ahead to barrel number 3, and anybody feel free to jump around with questions. This is another really interesting one. Originally filled October 20th, 2017. We pulled it out on September 18th, 2019, and put it in a barrel that, and try to follow me on this one. We get kind of convoluted with our barrels. It started out as our 4-grain bourbon barrel. We harvested that, bottled that bourbon, gave that bourbon to a winery in Breckenridge. Breckenridge is about 10,000 feet. They also make cider, like hard cider. So they filled that barrel with hard cider, emptied it, gave us the barrel back, and then we put our 2-year single malt in there. So it's ex-bourbon, ex-cider, now single malt. That one's got a really neat profile of kind of a cinnamon apple note, but it's not overpowering. It's definitely there. And when you ask about an intro kind of thing to dabble in Scotch, while this, you know, obviously we're not in Scotland, the climate
Can't be Scotch, right? Yeah.
But this does have a note that some of the Scotches that are particularly interesting to me have, which is a bit of a green apple finish, which typically in a Scotch will result from fermentation that has a lactobacillus infection, which you're definitely seeking, and then having those organic acids from the lacto, you know, esterify over time and develop those fruit notes. It's a long way of saying barrel number 3 has a really nice apple note to it.
Lenny, how long was it in the cider barrel?
Well, I'm terrible at math. It went in on September 18th, 2019.
So about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. That sounds like you got like a good
2018?
No, 20. So it was 2 years in the single malt barrel, and then in 2019 we put it in the cider.
Okay. Because she was asking specifically about that. Gotcha.
Oh yeah, it's about 6 months.
6 months.
6 months. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes if it sits too long in the cider barrel, you kind of lose the apple note and you go more towards that like muddled spice.
You know, we found that it had such a strong apple note for the first 3 months that we didn't know what to do with it. It tasted like applesauce, and now it really has come into it, and I love this stuff.
Okay. Oh, that one sounds
Yeah,
interesting for sure.
You want to talk about barrel?
Yeah, so I think it was 2 years ago, we did about 1,000 bottle release of a port cask finish of our American single malt. Kind of those dark, kind of like chocolatey coffee spice notes mix really well with a port. And anyway, we did a finish and it was awesome. And we've been wanting more. So this past year, Lenny and I were able to get a hold of 10 port barrels. We have some tawny as well as what's this one again?
Ruby.
Oh, ruby. Yeah, we have some ruby. And so anyway, this current pick is actually in a ruby barrel. And it's incredible. The kind of the spice and kind of the single malt mixing with those juice notes are really, really tasty. And
yeah,
the nose on this one tended to be my favorite. It's like this really nice, like tart cherry pie.
Yeah, and this is one that if someone said, "Can I buy that single barrel?" I would absolutely say no, because I want it for our blend when we put out our release. It's too damn good to rob from the pack. But in this case, if anybody wants a barrel, we can certainly make that happen.
A bottle.
Did I say barrel?
You say barrel, and then yeah.
Barrel.
Their lawyers will be contacting you. He said barrel. He said barrel.
And I was about to jump on that.
Right. Oh yeah.
That's a nice one.
And also to note that we just filled this up in February, and so it's going to probably be like a little bit more port forward than our final release, which will be fun. It's always a little juicy those first couple months.
Okay.
All
So
right. That's
number 5. Now we're talking the hickory smoked corn.
Yeah, and now we're making a departure to more of a classic American style of whiskey. And while American single malt is 100% our cornerstone, and Nick, would you say, like typically we say we make 50% of our annual production is devoted towards single malt? Yeah. I don't know if that, okay, so it varies year to year. The other 50% of our production is split up in various chunks comprised of making a corn whiskey, 4-grain bourbon, and a rye. So I have examples of all those, and we're going to go through them. Barrel number 5 is the 1 barrel of our hickory smoked corn whiskey. It's 100% corn. As you guys might well know, corn whiskey has to be at least 85% corn. It's pretty rare to have 100% corn whiskey, but when we look at a style and decide we're going to do something, a big part of what informs the decision of how to do it is, well, what's done, what isn't done, what's worth doing. And in this case, we said, we're going to go with a really high quality Colorado corn. It's a food grade corn rather than a feed grade corn. And we're going to, we skipped the whole like Scotch smoke influence. No one smokes corn whiskey for the most part, short of like a few handful of other distilleries. So we built a cold smoker where we load in 15% of the grain bill and cold smoke the corn for about 8 hours with hickory. From there, we, sour mash like all our stuff, open ferment for 4 days, and then double pot distill, and then mature in used oak. So this stuff goes into a used single malt barrel. And as Nick brought up, we make a lot of corn whiskey. This one is by far my favorite barrel. It's got some really cool flavors to it. Ton of butterscotch, barbecue. Coming from a vegetarian, I like so that's a really neat one.
Okay.
Current proof. This is the only one that says current proof because we don't know what the original fill proof was. So I did check the current proof. 99.72. So we go into barrels at a pretty low barrel entry proof. That one must have been a very low barrel entry proof.
I think I know what happened with that. I was like the very last of the booze.
Well, it says we fucked up. So
yeah, but then I think I just I put as much just to top the barrel off, so it wouldn't be empty.
Yeah. So we usually leave about 3 inches of headspace in the barrel, but we don't want a ton of headspace because then it's prone to having stave separation and an insane amount of angel share. So yeah, we'll go closer to the top. So that makes sense.
Okay.
I guess I'll keep going on this. So moving on to bourbon. Barrel 6 is our 4-grain straight bourbon. This was filled on May 22nd, 2016. So what's today's date? The
23rd.
23rd. So we're just shy of a month for it to be bottled and bond.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's not bottled and bond, but in 1 month it will be. But it's a really nice barrel. When we were moving from our previous rack house to this one, I was just tasting stuff while I was waiting for the truck to show up. And I remember tasting that barrel. I'm like, oh, damn, this one's phenomenal. So I wrote yes on the label, which you might see if we go thief some of that with a straw. Something to know about our bourbon. It's a super unconventional bourbon by design. We went with a 4-grain. It's comprised of, and I'll probably screw this up, so correct me if I get it wrong, 65% Colorado corn, 20% Colorado wheat, 10% oats, which in some of our batches are lightly smoked, and 5% roasted barley. Is that up to 100? Okay. So it's a pretty unusual 4-grain bourbon. It's wheated, it's oated, it's got roasted barley, but it's delicious. So
intriguing.
Yes.
It's a lot less sweet.
And that 114.13, that was the fill proof, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that was a copy and paste error. So the only one that says the current should be the actual current proof is number 5. It says it on a couple other ones, but that's actually the actual fill proof. So this went in the barrel at 114.13. They will tell you the current proof when they're thieving. If this one gets selected, it could be eliminated. So can't assume it's going to make the cut. So
So that was at 114 proof 4 years ago.
yes, that's right. And
It's
that's
probably a lot higher right now.
yeah. And interestingly, you know, we've always gone in at a fairly low barrel entry proof, but it was right around that time that we decided
That was on bourbon. It was that month.
Well,
Like,
yeah, exactly. So that was kind of the end of the higher barrel entry proofs. And 114, obviously, not that high.
not hugely high. No.
But we, from there, dropped it down to about 105. And good.
If you had to estimate, it's kind of, I'm just fascinated by how the proof rises as it sits, obviously, but like how much on average would you say per year? Or is it completely sporadic based on the elements in the barrel?
I wouldn't say completely sporadic. I mean, there's occasionally one that is shockingly, jumped up, but on average, it's a few points, maybe like 2-3 points at most.
Yeah, I'd say on average, our current single malt, we go from 105 to like 109, 108, and that's about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
The last one.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where this one's at.
Yeah, my guess is 119.
I would say like 117 to 119. Yeah, probably
Okay.
one.
Are you planning to proof it down to 100 when you talk about bottle and bond, or no?
You know, I wouldn't mind having this discussion in the sense of I didn't think bottled and bond had to be 100. And then when I was filling out everything for TTB requirements, I came to the conclusion, I was like, does it have to be 100?
Yeah,
I'm not,
It does. Yeah.
that's what I kind of thought after, but I didn't always realize. I thought it could be higher. So to answer your question, yeah, we're going to drop to 100. We don't have that much of it. So, I mean, I don't mind spreading it out. And to be honest, I don't know. It's hard to say. Some of our stuff I do like at the barrel entry proofs, but I'm not mad at most of our whiskeys right around the 100, be it the bourbon and the single malt. They seem to work really well between like 100 and like 107. That's kind of my high point.
Okay.
So Barrel 7's pretty fun. It's also our 4-grain bourbon from the next year's production, which is a little bit lighter on the smoke. But in November, when we made our batch 10 bourbon, we had a little bit of extra. So we just took that batch and put it back in one of the barrels, and it's been sitting around for 6 months. So it's like our straight 4-grain wheated bourbon, batch 10, extra aged for another 6 months. And so it's going to be pretty excited to round it out. We probably have some batch 10 around here somewhere. Anyway.
Yeah, we do.
But really excited to try that one.
Yeah, and just to give a little more detail to that, it's kind of interesting the way we work here as a small distillery. We'll decide on, when to harvest, what our capacity is for harvesting, and then what barrels are really the best, blend for everything. So when Nick mentioned that we had too much, it's because, even though we shouldn't have pulled as many barrels as we did, that was ultimately what we were able to make the best blend with. But then we looked at it and said, we don't need all this bottled, so let's put some back in the barrel and screw it. It's kind of a neat experiment. We get to compare our batch 10 from 5 months ago that's been in the bottle to something that got put back in the barrel for another 5 months. So we're probably going to keep doing that. It's just fun.
It's going to be really good.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a pretty
All
neat
right.
one. And on to the final barrel, the lone example of our straight rye. Our rye has been a really neat project for us. Grain bill wise, it is 70% Elbon rye. So Elbon rye, it's not the most common rye used. There's a few distilleries using it. It's got a really nice unmalted, just kind of a fun, grassy, caramely, slightly different character to it than some other ryes we've tried. From there, 20% oats.
Yeah.
and 10% roasted barley.
Okay.
So grains in there. I get a ton of coffee quality in our rye, like a sweet coffee blended with some grass. And we've been making rye for almost 4 years now. We're about to do our first full release. This one barrel is part of the barrels that are flagged for ultimately will be our first blend. And it's definitely one of our favorites. So.
Okay. All right. Our next job is going to be to rank these, but I do want to open it up. If anybody has any final questions, because you guys are going to be making decisions based on what you've heard here. So if you have any questions about any of these barrels, again, it's kind of a fun thing that we're doing, but you want to be as informed as possible before you start ranking them. 1 being your favorite to 8 being the one that sounds least interesting out of the group.
I missed the notes on 6. What are the tasting notes on 6?
Good question. Let's see. That's a bottle and bond. God, we haven't done full taste notes on that one.
Okay.
Should I go do some real quick?
No. I mean, it's kind of part of the other deal.
I guess like in general, though, I can give you some because I know what our bourbon tastes like. And even though that one's, it's exemplary in the sense that I think it stands above some of the others. God, I would say our bourbon, the DNA of Deerhammer always seems to nod towards a bit of a dark roast coffee quality. I get, what's that?
Nice toast.
Yeah. I get definitely like a lot of dark baking spices in this one. It's a little more savory than a typical bourbon style that you're used to. Definitely some like dark toasty notes.
I assume that the oats in there kind of give it a creamy mouthfeel.
It does. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think that between the oats and just our style of distillation and pot stills, I think all of our stuff tends to have a really unique texture and an insanely long finish. It's kind of one of the hallmarks of really all our stuff, but that bourbon for sure.
Okay.
Like that comment about extremely long finish for all of these barrels. I was going to ask you around ranking some of these by general strength in the finish.
Yeah. Wow. That's a hard one to answer. It's pretty rare. Every once in a while, we'll taste something like, wow, that finish sucks. And we'll kind of set it aside and let it sit longer. We wouldn't flag any barrel that doesn't demonstrate just primo finish because, that really is our hallmark. We wouldn't use pot stills because they're efficient. I mean, they suck at making whiskey efficiently, but they do make whiskey that lingers with flavor for a long time. So,
anything from a yeast standpoint that is unusual or distinctive for you guys on these?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think if there's any yeast variation in any of these. We keep our yeast program pretty simple typically. Is there any that has?
No, I could look it up. And
We have changed like throughout the history of our production. Do you remember the name of this yeast? What was it? US?
US.
SO.
It was like SOB 6. SAW.
Just to speak a bit about the yeast, it's produced by the yeast bank is Fermentis, and they offer a dry yeast, which a ton of distilleries use. As you know, distillers don't typically use liquid yeast unless they have their own yeast sprinks and programs where they can propagate, because we're not using a yeast pitch batch after batch. You use it once, it's done. It's already got that lacto going on. We have used for every single one of these what's by Fermentis as a traditional American bourbon yeast. And when I've said, well, what do you mean by that? And they're like, we can't disclose what distillery this was originally cultured from. They're like, pick one of the 2 biggest, and that's who it is. I was like, all right, well, I still don't really know whose it is. I could talk to you for a long time about yeast and my opinions on it. I consider it obviously it's incredibly valuable. You can't technically, I guess you could make a fermentation with bacteria and do a bourbon that way without yeast. It's a fungal addition, but
sounds delicious.
Yeah. We don't know yet. Yeah, there's some neat stuff going on there. I think there's a lot of experimentation that's going to happen there. But with yeast, we look at it and say, we've done a lot of experimentation early on with yeast that does not contribute a huge ester profile. Yeast that's pretty dry and doesn't bring much to the distiller's beer. And in turn, it doesn't. There's other flavor attributes that come through in the end. Maybe the grain then gets to like dance and be featured a little more. The bourbon yeast that we chose is I guess in theory, known to accentuate spicy notes in rye or in wheat as the flavor grain in a bourbon. And that's why it's so commonly used. A lot of times when I hear folks say, asked about the yeast, and they're like, well, it's proprietary. I often wonder, are you talking about the yeast that we use? Because that's probably the same one. But to the point of accentuating those spicy notes, we have found that versus other yeasts, it will punch up the specialty malt that we used, which is that crystallized or dark roasted malt. And if we're going to use that, because it's way more expensive than other grain, it's almost $1 a pound. We want that flavor to come through. And we found that this yeast does that. Now, I will say, we switched a year ago to a different yeast from that same producer that's even higher in ester production at high temperatures. And we just found, side to side on new make spirit, we liked this M1 yeast, which is actually a malt yeast as opposed to a bourbon yeast. Now, they're all Saccharomyces, they're all yeast. They all ferment and attenuate and produce esters or don't. But that was a long answer for your question about yeast. I'm sorry. I don't know if I even answered it.
No, it's a good answer. Yeah, no, I get you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. What we're going to have you guys do next is rank these 8 barrels, 1 to 8. Again, 1 being, I think they all sound great. They all sound like they have unique, fun, and interesting qualities. I'd love to taste each one of them. We're not going to have that opportunity, so I'd like you to rank them. 1 being the one that sounds most interesting, all the way down to 8 being the one that you are least interested out of those. So, and then we'll share them in just a little bit here.
You play the Jeopardy music while we do this?
That would be good. Well, Susie should be doing that, but she's got to do her list. Otherwise, she's our musician. She would jump in and do that for us. Susie's got a concert coming up for one of these virtual bourbon events soon, so don't miss that. Yeah, Susie in concert. We're gonna get some shirts printed up. One night engagement. Susie in concert.
Do you know Freebird?
I think we need to go old school. I'll have Bic lighters and call for an encore.
You want to go old school, you need cricket lighters.
Cricket lighters, okay.
Oh, yeah, that is.
So that'll be cool. So, Lenny, how's it been going with your sign that you had posted? I know you said you had at least one person not happy about the no coughing rule.
Oh, I don't care, man. It went great. Steve, I know you know, but for the rest of you, this town Buena Vista that Nick and I live in, where Deerhammer is located, we're about 2 hours from Denver. What's the population here? Like 2,800?
Yeah.
We're in a valley, and it's awesome here, but we have a really small population, and I don't know. I guess we are very isolated right now, but it doesn't feel that different because we all just stay here anyway all the time because it's such an awesome spot. But to Steve's point, we decided we were getting bored, so we decided to offer up all of our whiskey in 6-packs, kind of a you call it 6-pack for basically wholesale pricing. It was $200 for a 6-pack, and we had some rules. They were jokes. It was like 6 feet apart, which was obviously a rule. No coughing. It's a rule, but we were joking about it. We were like, don't say it's allergies, just don't cough. And one guy got annoyed. He didn't like that. He was like, oh. I'm like, well, if you're coughing, don't come out. I don't know what to tell you. COVID.
People get offended too easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to apologize.
That 6-pack wasn't like a 6-pack of beer. How was it packaged?
Yeah. Well, our box over there, but it's like a box that holds 6 bottles. And
6 full 750 mLs?
Yeah. $200 for
6 paper bags taped together.
Oh, we got a guy from the TTB just joined us with the tie on.
Hello, tie.
Oh, he's got the tie off. Okay. It's Brian Murphy's here. So, Brian, what we did is we just went through the 8 barrels. So hopefully you've got the list of the 8 barrels there. Do you remember to print that?
I did.
Okay. So we're going through those, and I don't know if you have any questions about them. We're really in the process of kind of ranking them right now. So that's where we're at in the presentation. If you want the opportunity as you rank those 1 to 8, 1 being what you think sounds the most interesting to 8 being the one you're least interested in. If you have any questions about those, Brian, feel free to ask since you didn't get to be here with us to start out. I know you had something important going on, and that's okay. That's okay. Everyone else is
good.
Ranking them 1 to 8. We've got a whole scoring system here. I've got a spreadsheet going. Whew. High tech. High tech. Usually terrified something's going to go wrong. I think it's going good, though. I think I got all the bugs worked out. Lots of practice, so should be good to go. No math involved here, just ranking. I've got some math on my end.
And, while we're sorting through, making tough decisions, I had mentioned earlier, but not everyone was necessarily on here. One thought we had was to pull down every barrel and have it accessible for thieving on the floor. But we just decided we didn't feel like driving the forklift around for 2 hours. So instead, you're going to be entertained by Nick or I climbing on a ladder. We've never toppled a rack of barrels. I don't think it'll happen tonight. But we're going to thief each of the barrels that are selected and talk about them, based on whatever flavor attributes pop out.
Okay.
How many barrels do you guys have aging now?
500. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, small by most standards, but it's a lot of whiskey.
It's a lot of whiskey.
It's a new rick house? Is it just because of space, just growth, or?
Yeah, that's right. A little bit of that, and we want to move some of the operations here. We wanted the flexibility of
because you're in downtown. Your distillery is actually in downtown, right? So you can't really have a.
For sure, it's like
right.
I mean, I don't think there. Yeah, it's like the highest buildings, maybe 2 stories. But it's our town,
right.
And now we're about a mile away in our second location, and we have enough room that we could build off of this building and potentially move production here. But yeah, right now it's kind of I just goof around here, drink out of barrels.
Nice. Good hobby.
How's everybody doing? Are they locked in? We're gonna go alphabetical here, so Jen Brenner, you're gonna be first.
Lucky me.
Okay. So here's how we're gonna do this, Jen. You're gonna give me your barrels. I do have to type this in, so if you don't mind, kind of run down the list real quick, but because I got to enter them. But yeah. So what barrel did you rank number 1?
Barrel 3.
Barrel 3. Okay. What did you rank number 2?
Barrel 1.
Okay. All right. 3.
5.
Okay. 4.
4.
Okay. 5.
2.
6.
And then 6, 7, and 8.
In that order, then?
In that order.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next up is going to be the legend himself, Rick Brenner. Rick, what did you have come in at number 1?
He's going to have to figure out how to unmute himself.
Hold on, Rick. I can take your mute off for you. Hold on. I got it. Okay. You're unmuted, sir.
All right. 6.
Okay. 6 is your number 1 pick?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2?
8.
Okay.
7.
7 is all right.
3.
Hold on. Okay.
1.
Okay.
2.
Okay.
4 and 5.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Next up is going to be Mr. Scott Henderson.
All right. We're looking at number 6.
Hold on. Okay. Number 6. All right.
Number 7.
Okay.
Number 2.
Number 2. Okay.
Number 4.
Okay.
Number 1.
Okay.
Number 5.
Okay.
Number 8. And then number 3.
Okay. All right. Next up is George.
All right. Let's go number 6.
Number 6. Okay.
Number 4.
Okay.
Number 3.
Okay.
Number 7.
Number 7. Okay.
Number 8.
All right.
Number 2.
Okay.
Number 5.
Okay.
Number 1.
All right. Next up is Justine Mays.
Okay. Number 1 is number 3.
Can you start at what you picked, number 1?
That's what I just said.
Oh,
Number 3 is my number 1.
Oh, okay. I was confused with what you're saying. Okay. Sorry. My fault then. Next up.
Number 1.
Okay. Okay.
Number 4.
All right.
5.
Okay.
2.
Okay.
6.
Okay.
8. And 7.
All right. Brian, you're next if you're ready to go. If not, we can come back to you.
Nope, I'm ready.
Okay.
Number 8.
Number 8. Okay.
Number 7.
Okay.
Number 1.
Okay.
Number 5.
Okay.
Number 3.
Okay.
Number 6.
All right.
Number 2.
Okay.
And number 4.
Number 4. All right. Kevin Rose, you are next.
All right. In Rate My Bourbon Collection fashion, I will give barrel number 6 a 100.
Let's not go there. Jeez. Oh,
sorry. That's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
In order 6.
Okay.
7.
Okay.
2. 1.
Okay.
5. 8.
Okay. 8.
3.
Okay.
4.
All right. And finally, Susie.
Okay, Justine confused me. So I'm telling you the barrel number that I want to be number 1.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. I was about to tell you something wrong. Okay. So number 6.
Okay.
4.
All right.
5.
Okay.
7.
Okay.
1.
Okay.
3.
Okay.
2.
All right.
8.
Okay. All right. It looks like we have, yes, we have this established. Okay. I can tell you, but I'm going to go through. We'll go by what the favorites are going in, and we'll start at the top because the bottom 2 will be eliminated. So, all right. Coming in at number 1 with scoring 49 points. It'll be interesting to see. Again, we're going to do tasting notes. This can totally change, but this process will eliminate 2. Barrel number 6 came in at 49 points. Barrel number 7 came in at 40 points. Barrel number 1 came in at 38. Barrel number 1, you are safe. I got to get some more flair here. Barrel number 3 came in at 37. And barrel number 4 came in at 34. And finally, the last one to be safe was barrel number 5, came in at 32. That leaves barrel number 2 coming in at a 30, and barrel number 8 coming in at 28. That means barrels 8 and 2 have been eliminated, folks. You guys can cross those off your list.
That's surprising about barrel number 2.
See, now we get the distillers weighing in, and that's the way we said we may have to do a redemption event
Yeah.
I have to say, like, if I was personally choosing, number 8 was going to be my number 2.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just not a rye guy. That's all.
I had 8 ranked at number 3 on my list, so
Yeah, I had 8 number 2.
yeah. So
I guess we'll go in order. So, Steve, we're going to start thieving some stuff.
Okay, yeah. And you guys can thieve whatever makes sense as long as we know, and then it doesn't necessarily have to be the order of that. If it's easier to do it some other way, as long as we get each of these, we can take notes on them as such.
We'll probably go in order because we know where.
That's easy then. That keeps it clean for sure.
Yeah, why don't you go with barrel number 6, which is number 1. Do you want to try grabbing the tablet cam, the rack house cam? we'll see if this works out. So Nick's gonna do a point of view kind of thing. Might be a little shaky, but we're gonna try it out.
You guys are wearing pants, right?
I'm.
Business on top.
The bung pop. These have all been recently popped, so you probably won't get much. But worth noting, so Nick is going to whiskey straw into a graduated cylinder, which is sizable enough that we can use our Anton par, which is used to check the proof. So we'll do that. Something we decided just before we jumped on this call was we're going to make, I guess we'll call it an infinity bucket. So, so every single one of these ones that we proof, so 6 of them, after we proof it and we taste it, we're going to dump the remainder in the bucket. And then we're going to give everyone a little 300 mil? 300
mil of infinity bucket. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's not 300.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that'll come with your bottle. Custom blend.
The custom blend. Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool.
We'll be tied together by DNA then.
It's not the spit jar, right?
How'd that straw work out?
Oh, it worked great. We're gonna test the proof here.
Happy Earth Day, by the way.
Happy Earth Day.
All right, guys, we're getting a reading on the proof here. Like
117.5. Wow, that did jump up.
Yeah.
That started at 104.35. So
barrel number 6.
This is barrel number 6. Exactly. Oh, sorry.
114 still jumped.
It still jumped. Yeah.
What was it? 117.5.
Yeah, and worth noting, that device that we're using to check proof, to get an exact proof, it takes a solid 1 minutes. We're going to skip the exact proofing for now. It might be like half point off, but it's right about 117.5.
Yeah, your bottles will read correct.
Just for dummies, how do you knock that down to bottle and bond?
What do you mean in terms of proofing it down?
Yeah, it's just water.
Yeah.
It is just water. It's RO water, so it's water that's passed through a reverse osmosis filter, just to avoid any. Even though we do have what's considered great water, but don't call water that doesn't have bullshit in it is really great water.
Right.
But it just to keep consistency and let our product through. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. No one talks about this. Nick and I do all the time. Proofing sucks. It's. I'd rather clean bathrooms than proof down. I'd rather put away long.
I have women with long hair. Are you sure?
Because you do a calculation based on the volume that you have by weight, and you check the proof, and it says, okay, add this much. What if you add too much and you screwed it all up? So inevitably you add less, and then you agitator, or sometimes we'll use something else that pumps to mix it up. It's so hard. It takes so long. It's
just people don't talk enough about it or understand enough about it, myself included. So thanks for the info.
Yeah, you'll have 300 gallons at 100.5, and it's now you got to add 0.7 gallons.
Right.
Yeah.
It's criminal. Just bottle it the way it is.
Plus or minus, give me a break.
Yeah.
I'm surprised and impressed by how light the nose is. That wheat is just nice and ready.
So I guess what are the biggest benefits of getting that to bottle and bond?
Do you mean for us or for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd rather have it at the 117 straight out of the barrel, but
I think for us, it's it's something else to talk about. I think a lot of people in the industry, when you see a small distillery that has bottle and bond, people are like, oh, they're not just putting out year-old stuff. Now, yeah, our stuff is younger than some other distilleries, but we do have some older stuff around. So it's kind of just we got it.
Yeah.
I think it's 3 words on the label that tell you a lot about the product. You know that it's at least 4 years old.
Right.
You know it's going to be 100 proof. So yeah, that that distillery is the ones that are producing it, that are putting it out. So yeah, there's some things that go with that whole bottle and bond thing that are good.
This reminds me of a mashup of Maker's RC6 and some higher proof of wild turkey, minus the rye. Like it has no rye spiciness, but it's got like a spiciness from
The malt.
I think the roasted barley, which malt wouldn't typically be like spicy, but it's like the roasted malt gives it that like a slight, just like dark toast.
Okay.
It smells like a Four Roses.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, actually got a weird bit of like lemon on the nose too.
No, it's like cherry tart with like a lemon zest.
Yeah, like almost like a meringue kind of.
Yeah.
It's not. This is kind of hard in the
So
sense
good.
that I love every single barrel, so we're all gonna be like, this one's good too. This one's good too.
Right.
We are quite proud of this barrel.
I'd say it's also surprisingly easy to drink for its high proof. Like it doesn't taste like 117. That's really high. It drinks really easy for the 117.
Okay.
And it tastes like a cherry tart.
Oh.
It's like a lemon zest nose. It's
like kind of layered with cinnamon and toasted peanuts.
Yeah.
On the finish.
Cinnamon and toasted peanuts.
Wow.
All right.
I'll grab the next one just to mix it up. Yeah, that one's gonna be interesting. It's kind of on. Where's that camera go?
It's on the stool. All right, you're going for barrel 7?
Yep.
All right, so
6 feet apart.
Yeah. He's way over there. So this one's going to be side view. This is batch 10. So batch 10, like when we do our batches, we have like 40 plus barrels to choose from. So Lenny and I will usually go to go to the older ones. We'll pull 15 or so samples. And then over the course of like 3 or 4 days, maybe longer, we'll like start picking our favorites, right? And we'll whittle it down and we'll whittle it down. And our batches probably average about 6 to 8 barrels or so. This one, we decided to bottle 6 barrels. And so we had 2 extras that we refilled. So we got down. And so this is like a collection of our 8 favorite barrels. That was 2.5 years. And it was our favorite batch that we've ever released of our bourbon. And then we refilled it and it's been extra aging for another 6 months. So,
okay.
It'll be our straight bourbon, but it'll look extra age.
Have you boys been doing a lot of store picks, or what's been going on with that?
I think we've done about 3 so far. Last year was our first year that we finally had enough whiskey to be comfortable. We were selling out, our first 6-7 years in business, and we started a ton of production about 5 years ago when I got here, and we're now finally seeing all that stuff in the stores. So we now have enough barrels to do store picks.
Yeah, because my plan was whatever ends up being, and I'm kind of an open kind of guy, whatever ends up being the pick of the flavor of the day, shall we say. I plan on bouncing around to all of my friends who own the stores here in Southeast Michigan and sharing that with them so that they understand what's going on with Deerhammer and, what happened with what was going on today as a charity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm hoping it's number 6.
No, put it in plugs. Don't sway the other. You didn't hear strike that from the record. No one heard that.
I'm not trying to sway anything.
He did put in a good plug. Maker's RC6. That's good. That was some good tasting notes there. Sounded like there's a lot going on, which I like. Spiciness, roasted malt, lemon, cinnamon, toasted peanuts.
You guys here, we have barrel 7 here. Went from a fill proof was 104.6 and it's sitting at 106.1.
Okay.
Also worth mentioning, I don't know if you could quite tell, I'm sure you couldn't as I was doing it. We like to say Donkey Kong a lot around here just because there's barrels, but what I just had to do was quite literally what they do in Donkey Kong. We've got a bunch of unwrapped barrels on the floor, and I as I was walking, I'm like rolling around on them trying to get up to this barrel. I wish you could have seen that. What's in those barrels, this is kind of a weird thing we decided to do. Brandy tradition, a lot of times they'll age their water. Sounds weird. The first time I heard, I said, that's stupid. Why would you do that? But then I started thinking about it, and I realized, you know what? That's kind of cool, though, because
that's kind of cool.
You're adding nothing. But when you put the water in the barrel, now it's not pure water. We add some booze to it to bring it up to, what did we do? Like 18% alcohol to make sure it doesn't get kind of funky in the barrel. It keeps its sanitary properties. But we're aging our proofing water so that everything in there can be a lower proof, but still have a lot of quality. So that's what I was just Donkey Kong around on.
Well, that's cool. That's really a unique take on the business. I like that.
This one,
It's noticeably sweeter.
it's so buttery up front.
Yeah.
Christy's got to be dying. You'd be loved to doing this, wouldn't you, Christy? You'd like to be there hanging out with those guys.
I was just thinking that the last one he was describing was making me hungry.
It's like orange, like just
Yeah.
biting into a quarter of an orange. Not like citrusy, but
No,
like
but it's
the
like
sweetness of it.
like when a citrus zest like kind of covers your mouth and makes it tingle.
Yeah.
That's what
Buttery orange. Whew. That's a
Okay.
tough one to beat right there.
Tutti frutti.
a little sweeter than the last one.
Sweeter? Sweet's good. Sweeter's good.
That like kind of
This is
dark.
bad for Scott. This is sounding good.
Don't diss my number 6.
Scott would like us to just go ahead and vote right now.
I'll be impartial.
More notes. Here's a dump cup if you throw a little bit of water in here, just see what happens.
There you go.
Yeah, so 6 has a little bit more fruit.
Yeah.
And 7's like a little bit more of the of the darker kind of spice and sweetness.
Okay.
Is there any percentage of rye in that number 7?
No,
No.
it's the same grain bill with slightly less smoke.
Okay.
Okay.
And on that smoke, when we first
It's not smoky.
Yeah, when we first started making bourbon and we knew we were following that up with rye, we had this idea of like, let's bring oats in there because that'll bring a really cool texture. And it does. It definitely has a nice silkiness to it. But oats, as well as barley, are really good at absorbing smoke character. So we thought, what aren't people doing? Let's give it a little hint of smoke. And it's varied throughout the years. We've toned it down and we found the sweet spot. Both of these two, both Barrel 6 and 7, exhibit a smoke note, but you wouldn't say, this is a smoked whiskey.
Yeah,
this
you
is a
can't.
smoked bourbon.
You know what? And I can't agree with you more because I think smoke hides a lot of the beneficial flavors, but it's not bad as a hint.
Yeah, right.
And we built our smoker so we could control how much smoke you put into something. Because when smoke starts, it starts out sweet, and the more you get, it gets a little bit more acrid.
Mm.
So it's more of like a sweet depth that you're like, it's kind of like, what is that? It's just like another layer in the whiskey. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, I see a lot of people are, on a sidebar smoking their bourbons and their whiskeys, as they make their drink, and I think they're destroying the actual profile of that whiskey and bourbon.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I'm getting like this reminds me of like those pretzel rods that are about like 7 inches long. They're like
Has some saltiness.
it kind of has that like a salty
Pretzel
savory.
goldenrods.
Salty, savory. Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Lenny, can you hold it up again so I can see the color?
Just went to dump it out.
I got it right
Yeah,
here.
Nick's is better. Can you see Nick's? Wait.
Lift it up a little bit, Nick. Our Nick's frozen. Nick's on mine.
Very
Nick's is-
caramely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a beautiful color. It's actually a little darker than the Bond.
Okay. All right. Which one's next, gents?
So we're on to barrel number 1, the American Single Malt. You want to grab that one? That one's
It's easy.
right in front of us.
Yeah.
Here's, you want the whiskey straw? We've got 2 diameters of whiskey straw. This is the quick draw that Nick's using right now. It's dangerous. I've taken whiskey to the lungs.
I remember my younger days of siphoning gas, and that would kill me.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
I would way rather take a bourbon to the lungs than gasoline. But it does ruin your day, despite how it sounds.
New kind of beer bong.
When I was a kid, my dad would always thief the gas out of the car to put it into the gas can for the lawnmower. I have no idea why he did that. Why didn't you just drive up the gas station and fill like I do now? I don't.
Was he
I remember that
was he
stuff.
in sales?
He's a policeman, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, he was siphoning from the police station then.
Probably. I'd see him do that all the time. He did. Every once in a while, he just take it in, just suck too hard on that, and just take it in, and he'd be
I have
out
that
there.
same memory of my dad. I've never had to siphon gas for anything. I don't know where that came from.
Shut up and get me a breath mint.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy. I don't know why they did that back then.
I can't wait to hear the notes on number 1 here. Because when you started describing it, I'm thinking breakfast cocktail.
Yeah. This is, we kind of do a rapid fire means of sampling. And I probably wouldn't like post photos of it on social media or anything because it looks super crude. But, we use these straws and we dip them in the barrel and take a quick sip, spit it out. And I'll just go through like 30 barrels. And every time I hit one that demonstrates some quality, even if I'm wrong, I'll just put a little like hash mark on it. And then we'll come back and revisit them again. And this one has just it's been such a standout in terms of our American single malt.
We're looking at 106.8.
106.8, okay.
A little jump.
Yeah.
8. Yeah, and worth noting, I talked about our angel share. God, I'm trying to remember what percentage we're at. I'm pretty terrible with number recollection. It's
8,
high.
8 or 9?
No, man, it's higher.
Yeah,
I checked it
right.
recently, and I was like, ooh, it's like 12.
Yeah.
Where's my?
That's tough.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right.
Nick and Lenny, do you guys have similar taste profiles, or you get similar notes, similar interests?
No, we argue all the time.
Okay, that's good. Well, that's good. I like that.
I think what's helpful from my perspective when I work with Nick on trying to get through something is, sometimes I know what I like and I won't tell him. I'll just kind of have a staggering of bottles so I can remember. And then he'll try and go, ooh, I really like that one. I'm like, because I didn't. I was totally going to give that one the finger and move on. Sometimes in the end, I'm like, dude, I really don't like it. But usually, there's merit there. I'm like, you know what? That actually does fit in. What was I thinking? Or oddly, yesterday, I don't know what happened. I mean, maybe I was drinking too much coffee in the morning, but my palate shifted way off because I tried a barrel that I know I love. And, actually, it was in a glass. And I took a sip. I was like, what is this shit? And I just chucked it. And I pulled out some more and tasted it. I was like, whoa, what is going on? So it's nice to have Nick and knowing that he knows what I'm looking for. And, within 20 minutes, I was able to kind of bring it back. I've never had that happen. That was weird. Hopefully it wasn't COVID.
So, all right. What are we getting here? Barrel number 1.
Man, this is we wrote notable maple note. And I think on the end, it's like a mix of some prickly tannins and maple. No question about it, like waffles. But leading up to that, it's definitely it's like Nick mentioned, all of our single malt is very, very bready.
That's the nose.
Yeah.
The nose is it's almost like a sourdough.
Sourdough,
Yeah.
okay.
So, is it weedy or?
If you've had it's like the wheat sourdough. That's what it smells like. It's like the darker.
Okay.
Sourdough.
Okay.
And then it has the baking spices, dark baking spices.
Kind of like a sticky bun.
That's the palate.
Sticking on the middle of your tongue?
Maple. The nose is a lot different
Yes.
than the palate. The nose is sourdough, but the palate's like the maple sticky bun.
Yeah, that's a good descriptor. That makes
is a great
sense.
descriptor.
I can't remember the last time I had a sticky bun, but now I'm
Yeah, it's
picturing
like
one in
cinnamon
my
buns.
head.
It's like breakfast.
Yeah, like the
So
sweet.
they're called a stucky?
Would
It
you
would
call
be
it?
really good in coffee.
Stuckies?
Yeah.
So this is an interesting barrel too, because this was our highest one out of the single malts, highest rated. So this was ranked number 3 overall, the number 1 barrel. So interesting.
I think a great choice as far as the single malt goes. I would say this one on its own, being that it has no finishing barrel, just what it is, it's a really exemplary cask of our single malt.
Okay.
And the mouthfeel is also notable.
A little bubble gum up front too. It's it's like tempered with some tannins and spice, but it's at first it's like a little fruit.
No, it's like when you unwrap a bazooka bubble gum and you get that dust on your fingers. That's what it smells like.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Like that wintergreen berry.
Bubblegum dust.
Would you say number 1 is
know that
your closest staple barrel of all, like what Deerhammer puts his name on, like just in terms of your biggest mover?
Yeah, I would say that. Like if I was to, we don't get a lot of folks to come visit us for single barrel picks because we're just not close to the population, which blows me away because I would get my car and drive 2 hours to come here. People don't know. Point being, we'll go visit accounts and bring samples. And I guess where I'm going with this is if I brought this amongst a few others and they didn't pick this, I might flip a table. Like I think this is.
I just need a 6-hour layover.
Go home, come back tomorrow, and let's talk about this again. Not always right. Yeah, this is a nice one.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna add this to the infinity bucket.
All right, and then we jump to number 3. Don't forget number 2 was eliminated, so number 3.
That's cider. So yeah, right.
Oh yeah, nice.
This barrel looks like super metal.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about this one.
Yes.
Because I see cider finish go wrong so often. It's very finicky in the time.
Yeah, that's why I put it way out there.
You guys keep the Deerhammer Rack House camera. These barrels got dripped on a whole lot, so they're really cool looking. And they have our old logo. It's a really old.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Oh yeah, you got the more barrels messed up, the better it is, right? They just look cool. Yeah.
Well,
I just like your stickers.
You got 8 people. Maybe you'll have 8 empty barrels that you can ship to 8 different locations.
Lenny has extra barrels if you can figure out a way to get them. Yeah, he's got some extra barrels laying around.
Would that be considered a carry-on?
Yeah. I think you'd have to buy a seat for it. But these days, planes aren't very full and they're very accommodating. So who knows? Maybe things are different.
I just got a flight to Kansas City, cost me $130 round trip.
Yeah.
I think these barrels empty are about like 60 pounds, maybe more, maybe 80.
75.
And then after they've had whiskey, like the freshly whiskeyed ones have like at least 10 pounds of liquid weight in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're heavier. All right, we're getting a proof on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, cider finish. It's old whiskey.
Started at 105.42.
Been in those cider barrels for about.
So still moving. We're at 51.22.
1024. It's at 102.5.
102.5. Okay.
51.48.
Yeah, a little lower.
Huh, weird.
102.5. Oh, that could be the cider.
That's true.
0.5.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, and don't forget, he'll get you the official ones when he sends out the bottles. If you'd select one of these, you'll get the real proof. This is just kind of a ballpark one for us.
There was some cider in the barrel when we filled it with whiskey, and that most likely lowered the proof.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That or we fucked up.
Yeah, or we fucked up.
Yeah, well, that happens.
I mean, the shocking thing to me about this barrel, though, was that if I recall right, I don't, like we'll get port barrels and they'll have port in them. These had nothing in them as far as I recall. Like I think they were bone dry, so I didn't expect much flavor contribution, but it did come through with some interesting flavor.
It's so different than the last time I had it.
Yeah.
It was about a month ago.
Like, I would say about 4 months ago or so was when I was pulling samples of this to give to people, be like, dude, look how weird this shit is. Like I wasn't saying let's drink it because it's awesome, but it changed so much.
Awesome. Whoa. So the nose is it's like an apple fritter.
Yeah.
Apple fritter on the nose. Okay.
The thing about it is like there's flavored whiskeys out there of which I just turn around and walk the other way. And this isn't that, but it definitely isn't like, it's not as if it's a hint of apple. There's apple there. Like it's like some apple cake.
Is like almost like it's almost like the normal apple cake, like suckers.
Like a schnapps, right?
I mean, I don't want to sell it short in the sense of like, because to me, I look at that, I'm like, no, that's lame, kind of. I mean, it's got its place. Like I do. Yeah. I mean, this
so much sugar. Yeah.
Like we have that port cask finish. Well, there's definitely port there. This has basically apple wine as a contributor, and it's a neat contributor because it's such a bready base. It's got so much like, so much of the caramel character from the crystal malts that it all plays really well together. It reminds me of just like a bready apple cake that's not over the top. It's like
the finish comes together really nice.
Yeah.
It has like a finale.
Do you guys have like a end user plan for this barrel, or is this like an experiment?
I do have a plan, but it's also an experiment. So I mentioned earlier at some point, I don't know if everyone was on, but I was talking about our Progeny series, which is kind of a collaboration thing in that, you know, whatever we can get. In this case, we gave Carboy Winery our bourbon barrels. They put cider in it. We took them back, put our single malt in it. I love this as it is, but I wanted to do more. So I asked them for something like what was that wine? I'm terrible with wine. What's the Australian or New Zealand style that's really dry and white and grapefruit heavy? Pinot Grigio? Maybe you're right. Whatever it is, wine. I asked them, I was like, do you have a style like that? Because I think that would work really well. Like just dry it out a little, and they do. So I'm going to go pick those up next week, put more single malt in there, and then look for what blend percentage works. Because on its own, I think this is awesome. I do think we could add more notes to it in terms of like, you know, putting a really interesting blend together. So I believe this might be part of Progeny 3, which we could probably next fall. Or fall.
But yeah, the flavor goes like from real apple, and then it finishes single malt. It has this nice kind of like bready roast, kind of that coffee kind of at the very finale.
It's the apple notes to me are also like, I mentioned this earlier. It's the apple subtlety that I'll get in something out of Scotland, where it's, you know, the contributor from Lacto, where it develops those cool like green apple notes. It's just a little more punched up than that, which makes sense.
And the nose is the most similar to actually sticking your nose in a barrel. It has like that. Like
Yeah.
It's actually like the barrel's really there.
Yeah, that is. It does have like that structure.
Most whiskeys don't smell like the barrel's there. This one does.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Next up is going to be barrel number 4.
Port finish.
I'll go grab that one since I'm standing.
Yum. Oh, this is going to be a ladder one. This is going to be exciting.
The port finish. Okay.
Hand that camera.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
I can follow
the
your
port.
Actually, a juice box. That'll happen.
Yeah, juice box to note how juicy it is.
The juice box.
Nick's got us on the prowl.
There he goes.
He's going to save the princess.
That's what it looks like.
Do.
Do we have to put in a quarter to keep the game going?
Just don't take a hammer to any of that.
This is cool.
Because Steve, you played Donkey Kong in an arcade.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. We had an arcade by my house, so yes, of course. Donkey Kong. I love Donkey Kong. I liked Defender was another favorite. Asteroids. Yeah.
Galaga.
Centipede. Galaga. Yeah. Gosh, used to spend so much time at those places.
So this little alcove we're sitting at is this is where we're putting all of our newest rye. So those barrels behind us we just filled the last couple days, but we're not going to see them for a few years, so we had to pack them against the wall.
All right, so checking the proof on this one, we're looking at still climbing to 54.05, still climbing a little bit.
It's probably pretty close to this. We just filled it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's only been a few months in those back. Yeah, we're right around 54.09. It seems to be holding that.
Yeah. So what's that? 108 something. 108.
109
Yeah,
something. That's climbed quite a bit actually. A little bit.
Yeah, these
yeah, a little bit.
We get asked a lot which port barrel these we filled.
Oh, wow.
And what's tricky is we don't get to know, and I'm not sure why. I think it kind of falls in line with like how some source bourbon, the original source of the bourbon doesn't necessarily want it disclosed for whatever reason. We get our port barrels from a broker in Denver, and they bring them in from Portugal, but we don't know what bodega, is that what they're called? I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
I think they're called bodegas. Like a lot of plum.
Color on that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if it is good and dark.
It is dark, yeah.
I mean, these barrels, there's a mix of some were bone dry and some had like probably a half a bottle's worth of port still sloshing around.
Yeah, the mouth coating when you drink it is super apparent. Has a really nice viscosity. Lots of juice. Juicy stone fruit.
Okay.
I actually get a little bit of like kind of like palm fruit, like apple in this one as well, even though it's more predominantly wine-like.
Yeah, on the nose.
Maybe it's like because it's got a slight tart note to it. It hints to green apple, even though it's kind of grape sugary. I love the nose on it though. So the plum is nuts to me.
Yeah, it's like sugar plum. It's like one of those candied little gumdrops.
Yeah, little prickly on the finish at this proof, but it's got like nice dried fruits on the end.
Yeah, it has that nice like
apricot almost, like dried apricot on the end.
Yeah.
How pronounced is the port influence? Or these you talked about? I don't remember which one it was. You talked about it being fairly dry, which that to me means it's not going to be very overpowering. But is that what you're seeing here?
You can taste it, but it's definitely not overpowering. It's not the first thing. It blends nicely. You can taste the malt as well as the port.
Yeah, and I would say for our whatever the various contributors are, like climate, the rat gas in itself, we did a previous port release that sat in port barrels for a year, and it was very heavy on the port. I loved it, but it was not a subtle thing. These are more subtle, and I'm really enjoying them. At some point, we're going to have to say, like, that's enough time in the barrel. We're going to get its second turn, and that'll probably sit for 2 years. But I guess to answer your question, it's I don't know that you would miss the port note if you were thinking all things. You would pick up on that fruit, but it's not overpowering. Whereas our last batch, you'd be like, whoa, that's port for sure. No question about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can taste both the port and the whiskey kind of at the same time. You get that fruit and that spice.
And that's really like, we went through all 10 barrels. We've got 4 that had been sitting for a solid 8 months longer. This one was my favorite of all. I just like it a lot. Where are we? Let's see.
Last one's number 5, the hickory smoked corn whiskey.
That's a high up barrel for sure.
Good luck.
Yeah. Where's the straw? Here it is. I'm going to walk away so you won't necessarily hear the audio, but I'll get the footage.
Okay. See him climbing up there. This is really great, guys, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool.
This about as cool as you can do something. This is well thought out. Again, they kind of put all this together. Really well thought out the way they did it, and cool stuff.
Kind of neat, since I know I'm never going to well, at least not anytime soon. I'm not going to Colorado.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, he's up there.
We need a road trip. That's what we need.
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere warm.
Yeah, in the summertime, Colorado's good. I was in there in October, I think October 10th last year, and it was snowing. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Evan and I are going to make Andy sad. We're just going to go to Colorado.
Steve, how did you get your initial connection with Deerhammer?
So yeah, that came. That was a weird thing that came out. So they opened up their own kind of bourbon trail. I don't know what they call it, something else. And the PR person for that reached out to me, and I didn't talk to Lenny for that one. That was had nothing to do, but that's just how I started talking to this PR person that did that. And then there was a festival that came up that the PR person remembered me from when they rolled out this new kind of bourbon trail they have in Colorado. And the PR person reached out to me again. And unlike the first time I interviewed a guy, and I forget which distillery he was at, but he was in charge of the trail, like he was the elected board member or whatever. This one, she just said, I'm going to have you talk to one of the distillers that's sitting up there. His name's Lenny. And so I talked to Lenny there. And then I was out in Colorado last year. I'd met him on that podcast, and I thought he was a great guy. And then I met him last year out in Denver, and he brought me some whiskey. And so I got to try his stuff. We were out there for a screening of a movie we did, and I really like him. I mean, Lenny's a good guy. He makes great whiskey. I thought it was neat that he remembered me from that and brought it. So I just invited him to come on some shows. We've been friends since. So he's a frequent, probably at least every 2 weeks. He comes on and records 4 or 5 shows with us. So yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah. All right, what'd that one come in at on the proof?
It's 100.2.
100.2. Okay.
Lighter in color.
Yeah. So, corn whiskey, used barrels. So use single malt on this one. And yeah, this one, again, I've mentioned it. We've got a lot of.
Buttered popcorn.
Yeah. It's so good. What I will say about this is it's not our most complex whiskey, but its notes that it does deliver are so big and interesting and so different, and it's just fun.
It's just like eating like a fresh ear of corn off the grill covered in butter and salt. That's like the full experience, like the nose, flavor. Yeah. You got that grill, that char, that barbecue, the sweet notes.
And when asked about I hate to put it this way, but like in a sense, an entry to what is done in Scotland with smoked, Islay, some peat smoked stuff. This is not a peat smoke. It's a different kind of phenol. It's not that iodine medicinal note, which frankly, I like that stuff, but I don't want it every day. This is way sweeter of a smoke. It is like a barbecue smoke.
Mm-hmm. Barbecue smoke, okay.
Yeah, but I think, to be honest, this was when we kind of came up with this concept. I love Lefroy 10. It's I think a very nice, approachable Islay malt that has a nice smoky quality. I've had some really fun experiences with it, drinking by myself in a tent in the rain, eating a chunk of blue cheese. And
what was it called again, Lenny? I'm sorry.
But this is my answer to that. Just like an American answer. Instead of using dried mud and decomposing plant matter to smoke grains, we used an American wood and imparted hickory smoke on a corn whiskey. So
I like on the grill, putting sweet corn in the husk and grilling it up. You're getting that kind of taste because you're getting the heavy corn. Is it? And the smoke. To me, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking it's going to taste like.
Are you getting those hay notes?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially like up front, it kind of like fades to like. God, it's like very caramely on the end. It's just smoked caramel, but up front, definitely kind of like straw hay.
Yeah, it's
on the nose as well.
Buttered corn, so much.
Yeah.
A little roasted, a little phenolic, but it's that sweet smoke.
Okay. I had a funny experience with this stuff. Not this particular barrel, but this whiskey. I road tripped down from Northern California all the way into Mexico, and went to a mountain bike festival in Ensenada. And after the race, which I didn't race, I suck it. I don't race. I just like to ride my bike. But I hung out at the race and poured whiskey for everyone alongside some breweries. And right across from me was a guy selling grilled corn. What do they call that? Elote?
Yeah.
Elotes? Yeah. And I don't speak shit for Spanish, and he didn't speak English. But I went up with whiskey, and he gave me a piece of corn. And it was this really cool, like, intermingling.
Right.
I was like, give me that damn corn. Yeah, it was an awesome experience.
That's cool.
About this is Mexican street corn, roasted butter.
Yeah.
Little burnt.
Yeah, I like that stuff. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's where we're at. We are going to be ranking these again. This time, 1 being your favorite, down to 6, the one that you were least interested out of that. I'm not involved in this, but I went ahead and have mine ranked too. Christy, I suggest you do the same. But before we go to that, if anybody has any final questions or anything like that, if there's something that you need to know, please make an informed decision here. We are treating this like a real barrel pick. I mean, this is virtual, but we're going to lock in. We're going to eliminate 3, and you do get some choices here. Unlike a barrel pick, you're going to be picking 1, and that's going to be the one you get. In this, we are going to narrow it down to 3, but we are going to lock you into that. It's not going to be like if you're like number 6 and it gets eliminated, it's just gone. So that's just part of the deal. Part of the fun of this event is we are going to treat it like that. So. Any questions that anybody has about any of the barrels?
Is there a way, like, because we've got to ultimately pick one, is there a way to tag these like, and this is going to be another reference that will age me, tag these like Marlon Perkins and Wild Kingdom? So
we can revisit them
this
as
was
another event.
This was my second favorite or third favorite. And Lenny, when are you putting this out in a bottle that I can buy somewhere else?
Right. I'm glad you asked that, Kevin.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we've got a couple options. For a store pick, we would do a custom label. Here's what we got. And I was going to ask this later, but I might as well do it now. Yeah. So all of our offerings, as they would stand on their own, have labels, and the discrepancy is going to come with the proof. And where we typically write batch, we'd write the barrel number. We do have this label that is for God, what would it be? Like pick your own single barrel. Like if people came to our distillery,
right? Yeah, like Neely does, where you just fill up a bottle at the distillery. Yeah.
So this one, it won't be representative of, let's say you picked like a bourbon or the corn whiskey or the single malt. This label isn't what that would be, but it has more data points available. It's got bottle number, barrel, alcohol by volume, selected by, and the date. That'd be the most information that we're going to get on a bottle. We could certainly send like a cut sheet of sorts with all the data points in addition to the bottle, whether it be that label or a standard which are a little more.
So you get your choice. You get your choice of just the standard label that would go with that whiskey, or the customized one that would be for like filling a single
I
bottle.
want the one that says "We fucked up."
This light blue colored one that has all the data points, it does say in very small print, bottled by your bad self at Deerhammer Distillery. So
there you go. All right. Well, all right. It is time to rank them. Repeating myself. I don't know why that's happening. So, yes, 1 to 6. Again, just a final reminder. Number 1 being your favorite. Number 6 down to number 6 being the least one you're interested in. I think they're all good picks. There's no wrong answers here. It's a tough decisions you're making. It may be by the smallest of margins, but these are important decisions here because you're going to get your choice of picking out of the top 3. 3 will get eliminated, and you do not get to choose out of those, even if it happens to be your personal favorite. Your personal favorite could be eliminated.
If you guys come visit us and bring this piece of paper, we can probably find the bottles again to taste.
Yeah.
These sweet labels. So.
Yeah, we had big plans to come out to Colorado this summer. I've talked to Lenny about that already. So that was the I don't know where we're at now. Now everything's all screwed up. Even if things start to open up, and that our whole schedule is screwed up at this point. So I don't know whether we do that or not. But yeah, it was a great idea. It was going to be a great year. 2020 was going to be just the best year ever. And now I don't know what's happening now. So
I'm always optimistic.
I like these events. This has been a great offshoot of that. I mean, not a lot of good, comes out of what's going on right now, but this is an interesting thing that came up because of that. And we do like it. We're going to continue to do this stuff. We're always going to do virtual events from this point forward. We really think that there's something here. We're doing more of them now than we will do when things get back to normal, but we think that there's always going to be a place to do a couple of these a month. So whether it's virtual barrel picks or any of the other things that we're doing, we've got a lot of cool different ones that you can check out at abvnetwork.com. All right, Jen, you're up first again. Start at your number 1 and work your way down to 6 if you don't mind.
Okay, give me 30 seconds.
Okay, sure, no problem. We want you to get it right. That's the most important thing. Getting it right. Brian Murphy, do you need an outfit change? He usually likes to change outfits during these meetings.
I'm at work. I can't change outfits this time.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm ready for you.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Barrel 4.
Okay.
3.
Okay.
1.
Okay.
6.
Okay.
7.
Okay.
And 5.
All right. Rick, you are up next.
All right. Number 6.
Number 6. Okay.
3. 7.
Okay.
4. 1. 5.
Okay. All right, Scott, you're up next.
Number 6.
Okay.
Number 7.
Oh, hold on one second. Okay, hold on. 6 and then 7. Okay.
Number 1.
Number 1.
Number 5.
Okay.
Number 4.
Oops. Okay.
Number 3.
Okay. All right, George, you are next.
All right, let's go with number 6.
Okay.
Number 4. Number 1. Number 7. Number 3. And number 5.
Okay. Justine, you are next.
6.
Okay.
1.
Okay.
7.
Okay.
4.
Okay.
3.
Okay.
5.
Right. All right. Next up is Brian Murphy.
Number 6.
Okay.
Number 1.
Okay.
Number 5.
5. Okay.
Number 7.
Okay.
Number 4.
All
And number
right.
3.
Okay. All right. Next up is Kevin Rose.
First is 6.
Okay.
7. 3. 5. 4. 1.
Okay. And finally, Susie.
6.
Okay.
3. 1. 5. 4. 7.
Okay. Okay. All right. We do have a tie situation here. Of course, does not factor in, actually. Okay, does not factor in. All right. Coming in at number 1, I think if you heard this going on, clearly number 6 was our most popular bottle. Scored 45 points. 45 points was number 6. So that was a lot of people's favorites and ended up scoring 45 total points. Next up in second place was barrel number 1, 29 points. So I thought that was good. And then finally in our top 3 is barrel number 7 at 27 points. Eliminated are barrels 3 and 4, both scoring 25. And then barrel number 5 was our lowest scoring barrel, and that came in at 17 points. So that being said, just as a reminder, you get to choose from barrel number 1, barrel number 6, or barrel number 7. 2 decisions you have to make. I don't know if you're writing this down, but I'll definitely write it down, Lenny, and I can get it to you, or if you're writing it down as well, but we can cross-check one another. But want to know which of the barrels, let me mark this down on my sheet here. So number one, Number 6 and number 7 are your choices. Okay, and then which label? Do you want the traditional label, or do you want the other one? Oh, wait a minute here. What's going on here?
Guess which one I'm picking. Guess which one I'm picking.
Hold on one second. Would you?
Spoiler alert.
Okay. Lenny, you want to do that?
Yeah. I mean, logistically, it's difficult, like for you, if you can, because I don't know how to do it. But
So you, just to be clear, you want their first and a sample of their second one? Is that what you said?
it's kind of like more confusing than that, because if the first didn't end up making the cut, but that's the one, like, then that would become their second to whatever the next pick would be. Am I making sense? It might be. I suck at numbers.
Okay. Okay. So you're okay getting it even if it didn't make the cut. They can choose anything they want for their sample.
Well,
if it didn't make the cut, it's going to be the sample.
yeah, it's
right. Okay. So yeah. So you get a full size bottle. They just made the offer even better here. You get a full size bottle, and it has to be one of the 3. You also get a sample of any of these that you want, a sample size bottle. They've got pretty nice samples here. You get these bigger Boston rounds. And so you get, a couple pours out of there. So you get that as well, which is really nice. So it gives you an opportunity to try one that you missed out on. And it doesn't have to finish in the top 3. So that's okay. You can pick anything you like there if you want to mix it up. And then finally, the third choice that I need from you is, what label do you want? Do you want the custom label that's going to have a little bit more information? That would be like if you just filled a bottle if you're at Deerhammer, or do you want the traditional label on there that you would that you buy at a store? So Jen, what I need from you is your bottle, your sample bottle, and your label. Okay.
So my bottle is going to be number 1.
Okay. All right. Your sample?
I want to do the port finish.
The port finish, that is number 4.
Something like that.
Okay. And then which label would you like?
I want the one with the most information.
Okay,
The bottle's your own.
We'll call that the custom, for lack of a better term, the custom.
That's
label.
fine.
All right. Custom or store is what we'll be having on those. All right, Rick, you're next. Your bottle that you get the full size bottle of.
That would be barrel number 6.
Barrel number 6. Okay. And a sample.
Of number 3.
Of number 3. And would you like a custom label or a store label on there?
Oh, custom.
Custom. Okay. No wrong answers. All right, Scott, you're next.
I'll take the bottle of number 6.
That's a surprise. Okay. And a shocker.
The sample of number 7.
Okay.
And the custom label.
Custom label. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next up is George.
All right, let's go number 6.
Okay.
And sample number 4.
Okay.
And custom label.
Custom label. Okay. Justine, you're next.
Number 6.
Okay.
Number 3.
Okay.
And custom, please.
Custom. Okay. All right. Brian?
Bottle of number 6.
6. Okay.
Sample of number 1.
Number 1.
And the custom label.
Custom label. Okay. All right. Kevin?
Full size of 6.
Okay.
A sample of 1.
Okay.
And the custom label, please.
Custom label. Okay. Susie, you are last but not least.
I'm gonna do exactly the same.
6, 1,
Yeah.
custom. Okay. And then you get the affinity sample too. So you guys made out like bandits here. This is really great. So you get your bottle, you get your sample, and the infinity of all of that. Yes. Not bad, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you, Lenny and Nick. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
How about
you
this?
very
Let's hear a little round of applause for these guys. They did a great job for us. Absolutely. Very cool. It could not have gone any better. Really.
This was great.
It was
It was
really,
a lot of fun.
it was really a
Definitely,
lot
this
of
was
fun.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that, we're all, most of us are stuck at home and you're not doing a whole lot of cool things right now. This was a really cool thing to do. So can't thank you guys both enough for taking time out of your personal schedules to hang out with us for a little bit here. And, let us get to pick out some cool whiskey. So I think it's really cool.
No, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's going good.
And
So
it sounds like a weird thing to say, but yeah, for sure, like when it makes sense, don't be afraid to jump in your cars and drive out here. Univista is an awesome spot, and all of Colorado is really cool, and everywhere is great. I love where most of you guys live, but
Lenny does travel a lot, so I'll give him that.
I don't know.
Because you were supposed to come to Louisville like a couple weeks ago, right?
Well, and then without going on a tangent, we can't. They won't refund our tickets, so we're 100% coming out as soon as we're allowed to.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we're definitely coming.
Party at Bourbon's Bistro.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Cards. We'll play some cards too. There'll be cards.
Yes.
Yes.
So how does somebody in Ohio get their hands on your stuff?
We're yeah, that's true. Actually, the quick answer is you can get our stuff. There's a website, sipwhiskey.com, and they're in California, but they ship to almost every state. So they're a great partner of ours. We are starting to look at expanding distribution. We've been around for 10 years since we started, but we're finally to the point where we have enough whiskey. We're starting to look at some other markets. So good chance we'll get close to Ohio, and close might mean an hour drive. I don't know. But, we're working on it. We got a lot of whiskey to start moving around. So
that's awesome. Congrats on your success.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a fun project.
Any other questions for Lenny or Nick here? A rare opportunity to talk to these guys. Very casual situation. Well, again, event couldn't be better. You've got their addresses. I'll send you this in an email what they want, just so you've got it for your records. And yeah.
Yeah, fill them up.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time. It was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Steve and Christy, for setting everything up.
Absolutely.
A lot of fun.
Thanks,
Great
everyone.
time.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the ABV network, the recording, or
Yes, yeah, we'll have this out available on our ABV Network Facebook page or on our ABV Network website. So if you go down to shows on the ABV Network, you click on that, and then video shows. This will be out, and I'll have this out tomorrow. So it'll be out there where you can see it under abvnetwork.com under video shows. So
perfect. Royalties for everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Guys.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Night all.